Great. Let's go ahead and get started. Oh, it's 6 a.m. Bless you, Emily. You're amazing. Look at that. Prioritizing your mental health and well-being. That is to be commended for sure. So I'll introduce myself in a second, but for now, I'm going to just play the slides actually from here. The screen share is kind of strange, so my controls go away. So hopefully you guys can see it. Maybe I'll zoom in here. I'll just leave it there. Thanks so much. So if you got an opportunity to print out this PDF, that's what I sent via email. So this is where you can take your notes. So I'm super excited to be able to offer that. And I designed it this week, so it's been really fun. So you can take notes here as we go through. We're going to start by learning about the static or fixed mindset and the growth mindset. And so when you take notes, you can just use this section. If you don't have that PDF, what you can do is draw that T-chart. That's called a T-chart in school language, and just take notes under the static or fixed mindset and then the growth mindset, and you're good to go. So that's for our notes. So if I haven't met you, my name is Danica Thurber. I'm an artist and also a instructor for Project Grief and the owner. So my husband and I founded Project Grief about 2 years ago, and we're teaching a ton of things to grievers like us, like you and me. And so the most important thing for you to know about me is that I'm a fellow griever as well. When I was 12 years old, my dad passed away suddenly of a heart attack, and my life changed entirely overnight. 2 years later, my grandma was dying from cancer. My mom was the primary caregiver for her, and so I became the caregiver for my younger siblings. So needless to say, my whole family and I were on survival mode for my teenage years. And so I didn't learn to express my grief healthfully. I had no models for how to do that. My peers hadn't lost a parent, of course, at that point. And so my grief was very much repressed, and it came out later in the form of a breakdown. So as an adult now, on the side of much counseling and healing and therapy and my own personal therapy, I now feel that it's so important to help grievers to not have to repress their grief and then break down completely. I believe that you can healthfully express your grief, and that you can learn how to do that even if you don't have models around you or permission from those around you. You have the power to give yourself permission. So I come to you as a fellow griever, not as an expert or a certified therapist. I am an artist and a therapeutic art coach. And we'll talk more about art and its role in grief recovery a little bit later today. So the roadmap for today's webinar is to learn, apply, learn, and apply. So first we'll learn about the fixed and the growth mindset. We'll apply it to our grief. What does that mean for us grievers? And then we'll learn again, how can art help us move forward towards a growth mindset? We'll apply it with a short creative activity, and that's where that PDF comes in. Again, I'll help you draw a simpler version if you don't have that PDF. And then we'll have a question and answer time. And so as I'm talking, hi Sarah from Nampa, nice to see you, and Nancy from New York City, and Nancy from Colombia, wonderful. So as we're talking, or as I'm talking, please feel free to type in your questions into the chat. I'll go back during question and answer time and try my best to answer your questions. So as they come up, just put them right in there. We'll get to them. So my first question actually is for you. So I want to know where you guys are at in terms of the growth and the fixed mindset. As much as you can, be honest with what comes to mind. We all know what the right answer is, but when it comes to our hearts don't really feel that right answer. They believe something at its core, and that's what I want to know. So for statement A, I'll never feel better. To what extent do you believe that? 1 is definitely believe that. 5 is not really. So type in the chat, statement A, to what extent do you believe that? 5, wonderful. Great, Sarah. Good to hear. Oh, and Colleen, very good. 5 as well. Oh, and 5 from Charlie. I'm so excited for you guys. Wonderful. Yeah, you don't believe that. I'll never really feel better. That's awesome. And that's such a great starting point for where we're going today, because that core belief is really what we're attacking, the fact that we can become better. I'm super glad to hear that. So for statement B, this is hard, but I can use this time to become better. To what extent do you believe that? 5 from Sarah. Oh, and 5 from Christine. Okay. So this one's definitely a bit tougher. So to what extent, and I mean, the negatives and the positives in the statement are really hard. So, you know, there's that. But to what extent do we believe that we can use this time to become better? Really, we're kind of seeing like, I'm really not sure to what extent I can use this time. This time is really hard. And especially during quarantine, we're stuck inside with ourselves. Yeah, Tanya, I hear you. It's the double negative. It's kind of funny to figure out. But with the quarantine, what we're doing is we're choosing to be stuck inside with ourselves, or not choosing to be stuck inside with ourselves. And ourselves are often our primary enemies. And so I think it's super important to cultivate a healthy mindset during this time, because once you have it during this time, when there's fewer distractions, when there's just yourself, it'll carry on to the rest of your life when we're not quarantined, when we're out in the world. So let's talk a little bit about statement A, I'll never feel better. This is an example of a static or fixed mindset. You'll see in research, both of those words apply. What that is a fixed mindset assumes that our character, intelligence, and creative ability are static givens. So they don't change, meaning static, which can't change in any meaningful way. So the things that you believe about yourself, there are some things that you hold as static. Oh, leaders are born, not made. You know, I'm not a leader. That's a fixed mindset. And that's represented by the picture of a lock. That means that we are locking our own potential, locking our mindset into place. It's fixed. Now, a fixed mindset, it didn't begin when you lost someone. It's been there a long time, and it's developed throughout childhood, and things that teachers say. You start to become cemented in the things that you believe about yourself and about your world. But that fixed mindset, when we encounter grief, it starts to influence our grieving and our healing process, and all the other areas of our lives in terms of career. Do our leaders made or born? If we believe in a fixed way, we're not going to progress as much. It affects our relationships, all kinds of places. But why I'm telling you this is to not give you fuel for judging yourself, like, oh, I'm so messed up. What I'm telling you this for is so that you can recognize that fixed mindset, and because we believe that it can change, we can move forward. So where you start is by giving yourself permission to begin where you're at. All of us start with a fixed mindset, I think. And we become more and more as we grow and influence our own growth. So that statement B, this is hard, but I can use this time to become better. That's an example of a growth mindset. It thrives on challenge and sees failure. So, it recognizes this is hard, but it doesn't use that challenge or failure as, a fixed thing to say, okay, I should just give up now. It uses it as evidence of things you don't know yet, or places that you need to grow in. And it becomes a springboard for growth and for stretching our existing abilities. A growth mindset is very, very powerful. And few children grow up with it, honestly. I'm sad to say. But it's important to know that a growth mindset is not denying our true thoughts and feelings. It's being honest with them, but then finding another way to think about it. On the other side, growth mindset is not Pollyannaism. So if you've read that book, in the US, there's this fictional character named Pollyanna she's positive all the time. She always sees the good. And that's not what a growth mindset is. It's seeing the bad, but choosing a way to see it that opens up possibilities. Growth mindset is not allowing yourself to grieve. So there's that double negative again. So let's take out the negative. Growth mindset is allowing yourself to grieve because it recognizes that in order to grow, we need to go through grief. That grief is part of that process, not apart from it. So what's at stake is that, well, everything. There's a quote here from a research article I found. Out of these two mindsets, which we manifest from a very early age, springs a great deal of our behavior, our relationship with success and failure in both professional and personal contexts, and ultimately our capacity for happiness. So, as I was saying before, it affects the expression or the suppression of our grief, and it affects our healing process, or it keeps us stagnant. That's a hard word to say. Our mindset has a great deal to do with how we go through grief and how we process loss. Now, if we're honest, though, I think the conclusion that I've come to in my own research, and it wasn't a ton of research in order to prepare this webinar. I was combining things with stuff that I already teach. I think that most of us have a mixed mindset. So most of us are mixed, meaning we're strong in one area, we're a growth mindset, and weaker in the other, a fixed mindset. And oftentimes, a static or fixed mindset can be triggered when we face an obstacle in which we're not mature. So a quarantine, that is an unprecedented set of circumstances that we have no ability to prepare ourselves for. We didn't see this coming. And oftentimes that can trigger, our static or fixed mindset. I'm going to get corona, I'm going to die. All of those statements are static, like I'm going to. There's no hope. There's nothing I can do right now to control or to make things better. So those things often trigger that weaker mindset. So it's important to ask ourselves, especially during this time, what's within my control? I think that our thoughts are often not within our control because they're subconscious or they're automatic, like they're just triggered, by sets of circumstances outside of us. But what we can control is our mindset. So that's different than our thoughts. Our mindset is a person's way of thinking and their formed opinions. So the thoughts are maybe like the little raindrops. The mindset is the wind pattern. So if a wind pattern, tends toward bringing a storm your way every single time something adverse circumstances happen, you're going to get wet a lot. But rain is a normal part of the weather. It's just an automatic kind of thing. So what we need to do is focus on what is within our control, which is our mindset. And we're doing that today. So a big question for us is there hope for change? There's a ton of research out there about neuroplasticity, a crazy big word. But all it means is that we've learned that the brain can change and grow over time, which is amazing. And then there's this whole idea of nature versus nurture. Are we born with a fixed mindset? Maybe people tend towards it, turn with what they're born with. But the biggest factor in a growth mindset is our nurture. And oftentimes as children, we were not raised in a growth mindset culture. Either you have it or you don't. Either you get an A or you fail. You get the answer right or you don't got it. You got skills in football or you don't. Those are fixed mindsets that are built in us from childhood. What we can do as adults is we can reparent our brains. It is not too late for us. Because of that aspect of neuroplasticity, that the brain can change and grow, we can be our own brain's parents and work on that as adults. So the biggest growth mindset thing that I can instill in you today is right here. I have control over my mindset. That is a growth mindset. That means that I can decide which thoughts I listen to, and I can actively contribute new thoughts and new ways of thinking. I can change the way the wind blows the weather. So it's important to know that this isn't a quick fix. Grief, as we all know, is a long-term journey, and every long journey has a worthwhile goal at its end. So with that said, I want you to begin to think, what is my goal at the end? If I'm on this long-term journey, not by choice, because loss is never something we would choose for ourselves or for our loved ones, since I'm on this journey, where am I headed towards? We'll begin to work on this in our activity today. The transformation I teach is based on the fact that we can change our mindsets. My biggest resource that I've created out of Project Grief and out of my own experience, and especially my own heart, is called Master Your Grief course. And I say master your grief because the tagline is master your grief before your grief masters you. So that course is a big journey with one goal in mind. It's to help you transition from being a grief victim, which is a fixed mindset, to becoming a grief artist, which is a growth mindset. So that's kind of strong language. A grief victim, like, excuse me, I'm not a victim. I feel that way too, especially telling people about it. But I know it because I have been there. I have been a grief victim. A grief victim is someone who lets grief continually happen to them. At first, we all start there because loss happens to us. That's why it's referred to as tragedy or a trauma. But when we develop a grief victim mentality, when we haven't dealt with our grief, we let grief continually happen to us. I can't do this because that will trigger me. I can't do that because that's too hard. I can't face, walking into their room again because that's going to remind me of all the bad stuff that's within me. That's a grief victim mentality. And we all start there, but we can't stay there because that's not true living. So where we all start is a grief victim. Let's look a little bit more into it. A grief victim is someone who lets grief happen to them, right? When grief victims look at themselves, they see only their loss. So you see a person of pain, when you look in your mirror, you see what you've lost only. Whether willingly or unwillingly, grief victims can't see the good around them and feel that bad is all there ever will be. They allow themselves to experience only a few emotions selected according to what they or others think is appropriate. So I can only feel sad right now. I can only feel depression and anxiety right now. That's what we're telling ourselves when we're grief victims. And they stay stuck where they are and are paralyzed by how far they have to go. If you're feeling any aspect of this, my heart is with you today. And I want you to know that it's okay to feel that, to be there, but I don't want you to stay. It's important to recognize where you're going. And where we're going is to a grief artist mentality. Grief artists are people who take that pain of life and transform it into tools and lessons that help them to continually discover a new identity, to love deeper, to be more present, and to better work through difficulties as they come. And once developed, they have the ability to bring light to others. So grief and art are so important because art allows you to externalize your grief, and it allows you to ask questions of it. What is true? What is within my control? What is beyond my control and my power to change? By getting that grief out, you can look at it and ask questions of it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to envision two plants. So use that template that you printed out, or I'll show you how to draw your own. And while I'm showing you how to draw your own, you can go ahead and color your plants. Color them in different ways to show how the different tones and emotions are of each plant. That plant on the left is the static or fixed mindset. And my guess would be it's kind of brownish and kind of shriveled. That plant on the right is the growth mindset. And it's still small, mind you. It's not a huge blooming rose, but it's growing. So I want to see what kind of colors you have for that. So meanwhile, those who don't have the PDF, go ahead and draw a horizontal line, divide it in half, and then draw little roots at the bottom of each of these. So for the squiggly static one, I have kind of like a little droopy, droopy bulb, droopy leaf. And this one, you can draw even like a bud, maybe you're not even blooming yet, it's still a bud. Just make it up, it doesn't have to be great. So maybe these roots are a little bit deeper than these ones. Who even knows? So on that on these two, go ahead and write words that describe the grief victim and the grief artist. What are these plants like? So this one I'd say like shriveled. Shriveled. Ooh, that's horrible. Blooming. Happy. Sad. So go ahead and keep writing those words. And down below, you can ask yourself, what does my life look like when I'm living in this mindset? So knowing that, you can start to answer that question that's down here. What does my life look like when I'm living in this mindset? Take 2 minutes here. All we're doing is beginning this worksheet, this activity. You'll have time to finish. What we're doing is building vision for what my life could look like if I more fully embraced the growth mindset. It's important to know where you're headed when you're on this grief journey. Checking my time here. I think when I'm in the static or fixed mindset, grief victim mindset, I'm living out of fear. I'm making decisions out of fear. You know, what will happen to me? What will happen to my loved ones? When I'm living life out of my growth mindset, I think I'm living more out of faith and trust and love. Like, even if the worst happens, you know, my family's going to be there for me. My friends are going to be there for me. I have faith that will carry me through. What a different kind of life. So once you're done with this, which is probably after the webinar, I'd love to see what you draw or come up with. I'll show my social media tags at the end of this. You can tag me or you can send an email. So while you're working, I'm going to go ahead and move forward because I want to show you this beautiful question that was sent to me by one of you on the sign-up form. I had a space for questions. This person asked, the memories of my loved one make me so sad. Is there a way to enjoy them without crying? So I want to show you guys how to put this growth mindset into practice because I think it's super important. We begin by showing empathy, you know, for where we're at, and showing ourselves empathy and giving ourselves permission to feel. This person is, you know, is crying when they look at the stuff that reminds them of their last loved one, and that's no small thing. They're hurting, and if you think of yourself as that hurting heart, how would you treat that? With very kind gentleness. So once we show empathy first for where they're at, what we can do is bring that into the growth mindset kind of process. But first we have to identify what are the assumptions behind our question. So I think for this question, we believe that true enjoyment means no tears. And we believe that crying is not okay and should be avoided. So those are kind of some underlying assumptions that we can draw from this kind of question. And if we add those together, what we get is, I can't enjoy memories of my loved one because it'll make me cry. You know, no wonder we're stuck. I've been here. I didn't want to begin crying because I was scared that it wouldn't stop. And so what we've done is identifying and assessing the assumptions. So step 3 is finding a truth to hold on to. So what I did is, I'm editing, I'm kind of turning around. True enjoyment can include tears. Crying is okay. I can embrace it. And then often the grief victim mindset starts with an I can't. And so many times we can find the growth mindset by turning it into an I can. I can enjoy memories of my loved one because, let's say, even though it might make me cry. You see how powerful that is? This gave this person permission. I can cry. I can enjoy the memories. And I can hold joy and pain and sadness in the same hand. And that's okay. So that's an example of working through the grief mindset. So what I want to do is invite you guys to join me for part 2 on Monday the 30th, the same time, same place. We're going to learn about the different mindsets of a grief victim and a grief artist, and we're going to begin workshopping our own things that we believe into growth mindsets. So by the end, you'll be able to identify some of your core fixed mindsets, and you'll begin to replace some of those with growth mindsets and have practical applications for everyday life. So do check your inbox for resources and a replay of today's lesson, and do invite your friends and family to join you. I think this can be a powerful thing when a family learns together what it means to embrace a growth mindset. So some resources for support, I'll be sending you these. The Master Your Grief course is the best way you can get guidance for your journey. As you change a mindset, that's no easy thing to do by yourself. You need guidance. You need an outside support. I had it for myself later on, but what I did is develop the thing that I wish I had. And so I'm offering that to you through the Master Your Grief course. If you're not sure if that's something that can help, you can try Grief Art 101, which is a free preview of what that is. I'll be sending you also the articles I quoted from today, so I'll be emailing you the links if you want to learn more about grief, about growth mindsets. So great work today, guys. I'm super excited for you and all the things that you're walking into already. And I'm excited to see you equipped more and more to become a person of growth and beauty, to become a grief artist, no matter where you're at in terms of your artistic ability. So all the resources I mentioned are on projectgrief.org. I'll also be emailing you. And these are my contact resources. So you can email me at support@projectgrief.org. And there's my Instagram and Facebook links as well. So if you want to send me a finished view of what you did, I would love to see that. I think that would be really cool. Let me check my time really quick, and we'll go ahead to question and answer.